So it's mid 2022. We just got off all the esports hype and I need to start putting this project somewhere. I need to start thinking about, well, what is this thing actually going to look like? So I just went into Figma and I made a black screen. And inside that black screen, I took a day trading chart and I put it in and I started to think, all right, so what is this thing supposed to look like? We've got to go on this like creative journey, this creative deep dive. And I just started thinking about all the things I loved in the video game world. I was like, okay, well, first thing I want to do is I want to be able to play with friends. So in Photoshop, I created a few avatars, took me a few minutes and just dragged them on the screen and overlaid them on top of the chart. I'm like, okay, cool. So I know I have a few friends I can play with. And I was like, well, if I have friends, there has to be other people. So there has to be like a queue mode of some type where I'm like me versus another team. And then I was like, well, instead of one team, why don't we play like this whole style where you have multiple teams? So, okay, let's add a start button to start a match and make it multiple teams. And I was like, okay, but what makes this thing gamified? And I was like, well, it would be kind of cool to see other people's charts. So I was like, I wonder, let's pin that idea for a second. And I was like, oh, it'd also be kind of cool to make sure that like I could refill some of my hit points. And, if I have $1,000 and my friend has $1 million, that doesn't make sense. So why don't we all start with the same balance in this match that we're entering? So I gave us all health bars. I'm like, well, the health bars could just be the amount of money you have. And then I was like, well, if it's gamified, you get second chances. You can use potions, right? And I was like, okay, well, what about a trade elixir? You can refill some of your life with a trade elixir, which is actually just your funds. So now we have a trade elixir. And I was like, okay, well, instead of losing life, how do I prevent it? How do I like wear armor for life? Oh, we can make this feature called trade delay where you can enter a trade and for a few seconds you can decide if maybe you want to stay in the trade or not. And I just started to overlay all these ideas on a black screen. And I was like, okay, this is sounding kind of cool. This is starting to sound like a video game, but every video game has a story. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll have to make a storyline for this fictional world of day trading, which I like, that's a challenge. How the heck am I going to turn day trading, which I now have teammates with life bars and potions, and make a story out of that? So I learned how to write and I took writing courses and I started to make a book, and it ended up being 150 pages in its first version. And I was like, this is pretty cool. I really like this book. This book is pretty fun. And then it turned into 300 pages. And then it turned into multiple books down the line. And we got multiple books planned in the future. And then it turned into, well, we need social menus. And on and on and on it went. There's skill trees and chart doctor and training tools and all these things. And I just kept, months and months and months of just theory crafting of what I wanted this world to be. Months of theory crafting. And I kind of finally had a skeleton. So I was like, all right, I've spent a few months on this thing now. I've kind of started to write a book about it. I don't know where it goes from here. What next?